Thank you. Yes, we're back talking about Islam and science with Adam Hart-Davis and Muslim computer scientist Dr. Assam Ahsan. Now, Dr. Ahsan, first, we know in the medieval period Muslims were inspired by their faith to go and discover. Is that still the case today?
Well, unfortunately, because of the decline of Muslim civilization, our society, our spirituality, our religion, science is also in a bad state. The Muslim countries are decades, if not centuries, behind others. However, the revelation of the Quran still inspires thousands of young Muslims in the West and in the Muslim world to go and study science and become scientists. Because
it's quite a harsh assessment, though, isn't it?
Well, it's a complex historical phenomenon, the decline of the Muslim world, which has happened over the last few centuries, after perhaps leading the world for 1,000 years in science and many other areas of life.
Where's Muslim science today, then?
Well, science in Muslim countries is way behind other countries. We do have very good Muslim scientists still. We've had a couple of Nobel laureates recently, but most of the top scientists who are in every field are in Western countries because of the brain drain. And the Muslim universities are not in the same league, really, as those in Western countries.
Were you inspired by the Quran?
I certainly was. I was taught to memorize the Quran as a child. And also I was taught a love of knowledge and truth to go and study. And science was just one of the areas which I was encouraged to study. And
isn't there a conflict?
Them both.
Isn't there a conflict between the two?
No, because the source of science and faith is the same, which is God. All knowledge ultimately comes from God. And therefore there can never be any contradiction between true science and true faith.
Well, Adam, I imagine scientists would argue that religion has held science back for centuries.
Well, certainly Christianity has been very bad for science. I mean, Galileo was a case in point. When he said that the Earth goes around the sun, they locked him up for 15 years. Well, house arrest, but very unpleasant. For 15 years, a long time. And he wasn't even the first. The first person to write down the story of the Earth going around the sun was Copernicus. And he published a book in 1543, but he made quite sure that he didn't publish it until the year that he died. So they couldn't get him, you know. So, yes, Giordano Bruno was burnt at the stake for heresy. So Christianity has been very unkind to science. And you were telling me about Stephen Hawking.
Of course, one of the things which irks Stephen Hawking about religion was that the Pope told him not to look into the first 30 seconds after the Big Bang.
Really?
He said that was a moment of creation. Yes, I think he mentioned it in the Brief History of Time.
Ah.
And I think that has affected Stephen Hawking in his view towards religion.
That's dreadful, isn't it? I mean, surely, you know, even the Pope shouldn't interfere.
Well, certainly, if we had a great caliph like Al-Ma'mun of the past, he would have perhaps said to Stephen Hawking, please do go and study the first 30 seconds.
Him, yeah.
Yes, exactly,
yes.
Because that is part of God's creation.
So science now, is it the preserve of superpowers?
Oh, wow, what do you think about that?
Well, possibly when the Muslim political system was very strong and the caliphs had that authority, they did inspire and encourage science and scientific endeavour. And with the political decline of the Muslim world, there has been a corresponding scientific decline. So they are linked, I think.
Because, yes, and of course the Islamic world was huge, wasn't it? It went all the way from Spain to Pakistan. It was a vast empire.
A vast empire with lots of scientific endeavour in different parts of it.
Right, and people able to collaborate because they all spoke Arabic.
Yes, you need an international language.
Yes.
It does help for research.
Yes.
Well, the international language of science now is English.
Is English, and the Americans have enormous quantities of money and lots and lots of people. But curiously, you know, the highest concentration of Nobel Prizes has come out of the Cavendish lab in Cambridge. Now, you know, we're not big or rich. We were in Victorian times, but we're not now, and that's very interesting. I mean, I don't know how that's happened.
Well, you also need an idea to inspire and motivate you to go out and study and lead scientific research. And we still have that love for knowledge in Britain, I believe. And certainly in the classical period, the revelation of the Quran, the urge to study the world as a means of knowing God better, was an inspiration for the Muslim scientists who perhaps led the world for 1,000 years.
So you mean when the Quran tells people to study the flight of birds and the falling of rain, it's in order to understand God better? It's not to understand the world, it's to understand God?
Well, it's both. It's to see how beautifully the creation has been made, and therefore also to know God better and to benefit society. Science and technology should be used to benefit society and not harm it.
Yes.
So things like weapons of mass destruction, you know, should never really have been invented. That's a misuse of science.
Yes.
Fascinating stuff.